Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff happening in Destiny right now. A bunch of new weapons, armor, and mechanics have just been showed off. I wasn't planning on making a video on it, to be honest, but after the Vidoc, I just couldn't stop myself anymore. There's so much cool stuff coming, oh my god! There's been a lot of snippets of things shown off that go by in the blink of an eye, and I'm sure a lot of you are curious, but don't have the time to analyze everything in detail. Well, lucky for you, I have no life, so let's talk about how good the new weapons and armor will actually be. Yeah, I'll just tell you right now, some of this stuff will be busted. I'm going to be going through a lot of different pieces of gear, what we know about them for a fact, theories I have about how things might work, and guesses as to how the game meta will be affected. If I do miss something, I'm sorry, but there's a lot, so feel free to let me know how stupid I am in the comments. Also, just a little side note, I had the entire script for this video done as of February 10th when the TWAB came out, and then Bungie released the TWAB, which made me have to rewrite half of it. Bungie, why do you do this to me? I have enough work already! Fucking ah! You know what? It's fine. It's done, and Bungie will surely not release something to undermine my entire script again, right? Right? So far, all 6 of the new exotic armor pieces have been revealed thanks to the most recent TWAB. There's going to be a stasis and a non-stasis exotic armor piece for each class. I'm already getting off track here, but Bungo said in the recent TWAB that you'll be able to get these exotics that typically only drop from solo Legend of Master Lost sectors by completing the Witch Queen campaign on Legendary difficulty. That's amazing, and I love it. I love the incentive to actually play the campaign beyond the first playthrough. I can almost forgive you for making me rewrite my entire script. Almost. The Titan Stasis exotic is a chest piece called Hoarfrost-Z. It functions by replacing the Titan barricade with stasis crystals. There are a few large crystals on either side of the Titan that cast it, with one smaller crystal in the middle that can be shot over like a normal rally barricade. I mean, that's pretty decent already, but it still retains the function of a normal rally barricade, so you can get all the benefits like faster reload speeds behind it. It also slows enemies near the crystals, and honestly, this could make it a great defensive tool for PvP already. If this functions anything like the normal Glacier Grenade, then you'll be able to freeze any nearby enemies instantly when you cast the barricade. Now just imagine that in PvP. I think this has quite a bit of potential, mostly because of the build potential that Stasis has. Slap on Whisper of Change so that when you're near a Stasis Crystal, you'll be able to gain damage resistance basically whenever you want, or Whisper of Shards so you can shatter the crystals and recharge your nades faster. You might even be able to chain them infinitely. That's just the tip of the iceberg though. You see what I did there? Because I'm iceberg. No, okay. Well, this exotic gets better if you're able to use the stasis barricade on light subclasses as well. Bungie never said it will work this way or not, however, so this is all just speculation, but imagine being able to instantly freeze targets to proc Focusing Lens, if it still exists next season, and then popping Thunder Crash. The possibilities are really endless there, although my prediction is that it will only work if you're using the stasis class. Either way, this exotic has a lot of potential for stasis builds, and I could see it being used for both PvP and PvE, although I doubt it will be an S-tier exotic. The next Titan exotic is called the Loreley Splendor Helm. I have to say, this thing looks nice. It doesn't seem like it's all for looks though. It makes sunspots that heal you when you stand in them on Sun Warrior, and it creates a sunspot at your location when you're critically wounded. I'll be straight up, this sounds like Wormhusk Crown for Titan. Being able to heal in PvE is a godsend, especially on Titan that has basically nothing to keep you alive in its base kit, at least not compared to Warlocks. It sounds like this exotic will give Titans a fair bit of survivability and might even make Solar Titan worth running in non-boss PvE encounters for that reason. I would have actually said this was a bad exotic if not for creating a sunspot that can heal you when you're critically wounded. It's basically a get out of jail free card that I assume will refresh after a short cooldown timer. Just imagine that paired with a decent protective light build. If you watched my Hunter build guide, you already know how busted this principle has the potential to be, and if you haven't seen it, Anyway, my final verdict is that this will be a much needed Titan survivability exotic that will be around A to B tier in PvE. For PvP, I honestly think it'll be pretty bad since it's so situational, but if the healing is fast enough, then it could provide Titans with a kind of healing rift, which is a pretty scary thought. Oh no. Okay, moving on. So that's it for Titan, and of course, Bungie, as much as they love Warlocks, gave them 2 good exotics. I'm definitely not a Hunter main that's crying in the corner with no gameplay footage from the Vidoc right now. I'm fine. Everything is fine. Don't worry, I'm sure hunters won't get absolutely shafted again. That's never happened before, right? Well, anyway, warlocks are good. We all know that, so surely Bungie won't bust them even more with their exotics, right? We all know that's a lie. This stuff is broken as shit. The first exotic called Osmiomancy... God, what the f... The first exotic called Osmiomancy gives warlocks 2 cold snap grenades with improved tracking. Sounds pretty simple, right? Well, this essentially will allow warlocks to chain stasis nades if used correctly. I mean, there's already a build to get infinite stasis nades on warlocks, so this can make it even more ridiculous. Also, the already good stasis turret for PvE can now have a friend out at the same time, ensuring that no enemy even gets to think about shooting at you. With all the other amazing stasis grenade recharge builds floating around right now, I'm terrified of the implications of this for PvE. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it was possible to get upwards of 5 to 10 turrets out from one warlock with the right build. That's without even mentioning the implications of stasis grenade spam in PvP. Sure, stasis has been nerfed, but with a good build and spamming these nades every few seconds, you're sure to make some enemies in trials. But you know what, let's not worry about that, because the next exotic could break the entire PvE meta forever. Alright everyone, buckle up, because we're going to the land of exotics that will be absolutely busted. Let me introduce you to your new savior in endgame content, the Devouring Rift Legs. So, let me ask you something. You ever think, I would love to use Empowering Rift, but being able to heal pretty much whenever I want with Healing Rift is just too useful. If only I could heal with Empowering Rift too. Of course, that would be too overpowered, so Bungie will never make that an exotic, right? JK, psych, dumbass! They really did it! They really fucking did it! And they say it with this nonchalant attitude as if they didn't just break warlocks even more.
Empowering Rift doesn't heal you, well, what if it did?
If this thing really combined Healing Rift and Empowering Rift into one, then it would, without question, become one of the most used exotics for endgame content. However, sadly, or luckily, depending on your viewpoint, that's not how it'll work. They're called Devouring Rift Legs. I wonder if there's something else that shares that name in the Warlock kit. Oh wait, there is. Devour, everyone. This rift gives you a normal Empowering Rift that procs Devour, which heals you to full health when you get a kill. Now that's still very good, mind you, although I don't think it's nearly as busted as combining the two. So it might not completely destroy the meta, but either way, this exotic will probably be very good. Like, I'm talking A tier, bare minimum for survivability. The question is, will it just be good, or will it destroy the meta like Lunar Faction Boots and Phoenix Protocol have in the past? We can really only watch and pray to our overlords, the Big B. Please have mercy on the non-Warlock main souls. Now, hunters, I guess. This exotic is f***ing terrible, moving on. Okay, for real though, compared to the other exotics, this is just so underwhelming, man. It's called the Blight Ranger helmet, by the way, but who cares? Warlocks and Titans get these incredible new abilities, and Hunters get reflected things do more damage. You still have love for Hunters despite the jokes? Am I a joke to you, Bungie? And if you're just gonna say that I'm salty because I'm a Hunter main, then you're absolutely right, I am salty, but just let me have this, okay? The exotic works by making reflected projectiles while using Middle Tree Arcstrider deal increased damage. Also, apparently reflected projectiles can generate orbs of power, but that's more of a bonus than a perk that will make or break the exotic. I will say, though, that this exotic could potentially be good even though I doubt it. The only reason I say this is because we haven't seen many enemies that will be in Witch Queen yet, and we don't know how large the damage increase is. Keep in mind that we'll be fighting Hive Guardians this year. This is obviously something completely new, and this exotic feels like it was designed specifically to counter that. I mean, if there's a Hive Guardian boss in the new raid that casts a super and you can reflect it with yours for increased damage, then that actually has the potential to be very good. The other way this exotic could end up being good is because of the damage increase. You see, Bungie's being pretty cheeky here, not telling us how much the increase is. Is it 10%? 20%? 50? 300? This matters a whole heck of a lot, but based on other exotic buffs, my prediction is that it will be about a 50% damage buff. If it was a tripling or even doubling of damage, then I could see it being used in some scenarios outside of Witch Queen content. However, honestly, I think that if this exotic sees the light of day, then it will only be in Witch Queen content for countering Hive Guardians. I've never actually tested reflecting current boss projectiles with Arc Hunter, but I can't imagine it's worthwhile. Remember, you can't fire your weapon when using roaming supers, so you lose all that DPS from your weapons, whereas with Celestial Nighthawk, for example, it's a one and done. You lose little to no time firing your weapons with Nighthawk. If you're reflecting projectiles, then you need to do as much damage as you can with your weapons, and then more to make it worth using, unless you're just trying to conserve ammo. Basically, I just really don't think this exotic is gonna be good at all, but I do acknowledge the fact that it has the potential to be very good in very niche circumstances. I know I said Hunter was getting shafted, but the Renewal Grasps sound like they could actually be pretty decent. It makes the dust field grenade radius much larger while also reducing the damage allies take in its radius, and reducing the damage enemies in the radius deal. Wait, you know what? Now that I'm saying this out loud, that sounds pretty broken for PvP. Imagine stacking this on the Touch of Winter aspect to make the radius even more ridiculously huge. You could potentially make multiple weapons take extra shots to kill if you or your enemy are inside this thing. It actually sounds like the ultimate neutral tool. Honestly, with Stasis on Hunter getting nerfed so much, this might just bring it back into the meta in PvP. It can be useful in PvE, albeit probably less so. While getting broken by a boss? Throw a dust field on it to reduce the amount of damage it deals. Need to get that res? Use a dust field to make you less likely to die. That's on top of the good ad clear potential dust field already has, so you know what? I take it back. Hunters did get a pretty good exotic, even though it probably won't be game breaking. I'm simultaneously excited and terrified to use it in PvP. Now the moment I'm sure you've all been waiting for. It's weapon time, baby! I'm so excited to talk about these. There's just so much content. Bungie could have just added a few new weapons here and there, but nah. They really just said, F it, 50 new weapons! God, I'm so excited. Okay, so I'm not going to talk in depth about legendaries because there's just too much to look at, but I'll talk about crafting real quick. It appears like new weapons will get an origin perk that is attached to weapons in addition to their 4 main perk slots. These origin perks will vary by weapon type, but they get bonuses such as reload speed, mag size, etc. It kinda sucks that you'll probably have to get new versions of a lot of your favorite legendaries to get these perks on the new ones, but it's a small price to pay for salvation. The real meat here is how crafting works. You can apparently choose what perks you want on your weapons and unlock them over time through a longer process than the old masterworking system, which does still exist by the way. I'm both extremely excited and kinda scared for this. Of course I want to be able to get my god roll without putting in any real work grinding for random rolls. However, I just worry that if these weapons are too easy to get god rolls of, then what will there be to grind for? I just hope the process isn't too short for hardcore players, although I admit that having some easy things to craft would be great for the New Light experience. That is, if Bungie ever thought about New Lights at all. Dares of Eternity. I'm personally in the camp of people that think this will make the game better though. Being able to reshape weapons if you want to change perks later is an absolute godsend, and as long as the time to unlock these perks isn't too short, and some weapons like raid weapons are still only acquirable with random rolls, then this system will be fantastic, in my opinion. The key here I think will be a good balance between grinding for random rolls and grinding for the completion of weapons with the new crafting system. If you want to see an in-depth guide on how crafting actually works when Witch Queen comes out, let me know in the comments. Okay, so I know I said I wasn't going to talk about legendary weapons much, but I have to talk about the Glaives. I'll be honest, at first I thought these things were going to not be great, but after I saw them in use in the trailers and the Vidoc, my mind has changed a little. Don't get me wrong, they probably won't fill the role of ad clear or DPS as well as the King's Bless Up Sleeper, but their utility potential looks to be higher than most other options in the game currently. The melee attack combo appears to be faster than normal melee attacks, which is great for killing red bar enemies. We don't know how much damage the ranged blast does, but we know that it will use special ammo and it can one-shot a knight. For that reason, I assume that they will do similar damage to a slug shotgun, along with the downside being slow projectile speed and rate of fire. For that reason, I assume that they will do similar damage to a slug shotgun, with the downside being slow projectile speed and rate of fire. To me, this makes it more of an all-arounder weapon. However, I worry that it will just be kind of mediocre at everything it does, but I still feel that it will be useful because of one small thing. It has a forward shield. This is no sword guard, it's a full-on barrier that you can use to traverse areas with high amounts of enemy fire and even revive teammates from behind it. Again, I don't think the Glaive will be a top-tier DPS weapon, but I do think that its utility will put it in the hands of a lot of players during the new Witch Queen content, and possibly even the raid race. Let's not forget that there's a new season coming alongside Witch Queen and new mods with it. I would be shocked if there wasn't at least one mod that improves the performance of Glaives for the entire season. Also, in more cases than not, Bungie seems to be along the lines of new equals good, so even more reason to give them a shot when Witch Queen drops. Okay, now that that's out of the way, we can get to the good stuff. I mean, the good. The creme de la creme, the meta-defining stuff, the things that are most likely to break Witch Queen and maybe even all the content for the rest of the year. Exotic weapons. Okay, y'all, I'm gonna try my best to get through this without yelling, but no promises. To my knowledge, there have been 6 exotic weapons revealed. Since we just talked about legendary glaives, let's talk about the exotic ones. I already said that I think glaives will have high utility as legendary variants, but I honestly don't know what to expect for the exotics. A lot of their usefulness will be dependent on how good the basic glaive is and how high the damage scaler is for the exotic version. With that being said, Bungie's doing something very unique for the exotic glaives that has not been done in Destiny 2 to this point. There will be 3 exotic glaives with different variants that are specific to each class. I'm still undecided on whether I like this or not, but it does make me wonder if the Big B will do this with more exotic weapons in the future. I'm kinda leaning towards disliking it though, because I don't like weapons that are locked to a specific class, but I won't decide until I actually get to use them. Let's talk specifics, because the abilities in these things seem kinda really good. The Titan exotic glaive is called Edge of Action. The only way that I can really describe this thing is a big jello cannon. What? Come on, you can't tell me this thing doesn't look like grape jello. No, you're weird. Ugh. Anyway, this thing basically shoots out a ranged mini Titan bubble that looks like jello! Man, looking at it is making me kinda hungry. Dang it, I want jello now, hang on. Seriously though, I'm sure I don't even need to tell you how good this thing will be if this mini Titan bubble functions anything like the actual Titan Super Ward of Dawn. Being able to throw down something that gives you an overshield damage buff and blocks damage from enemies would not only be overpowered, but it would render Titan Bubble mostly useless by comparison. I don't think that's how it'll work though. I simply cannot imagine that Bungie would allow this thing to give a damage buff unless it had an insanely long cooldown. Even so, being able to throw down a massive source of cover anywhere you want has a lot of utility value. My prediction is that this thing will be great for content where you're under-leveled, such as Grandmaster Nightfalls, since you rely on cover much more heavily. This will, of course, depend on how strong the shield is, though. There might even be other buffs that we don't know about, such as the glaive itself gaining damage after standing in the mini-bubble. My biggest question that I'm left with is how often these abilities will be able to be cast. Will it cost ammo? Energy like a sword? Will it be on a cooldown timer? That plays a huge role in how good the ability will be, in my opinion. I think that overall, this exotic perk builds on the idea of the glaive being primarily a utility-based weapon rather than an S-tier DPS or ad-clear weapon. I think it will be useful, but I doubt you'd ever want to have more than one person on your fire team using it. Alright, on to the best one, the Warlock Glaive, Edge of Intent. Yeah, it deploys a healing turret, because Warlocks need even more ways to heal themselves. Okay, so the biggest downside for this, and any of the glaives really, is that you sacrifice damage and killing potential for utility. I highly doubt that the glaive will be able to match the DPS kings, and it probably won't be able to kill as fast as Trinity Ghoul or Witherhorde. Well, that's enough downsides. Healing turret, good! As long as the glaive itself is a decent weapon, having a weapon that can essentially be a ranged healing rift in addition to your normal healing or empowering rift is really strong for survivability builds in PvE. Like, stack this on top of my Warlock survivability build, and it makes that broken build even stronger. The Warlock build video is coming, don't yell at me, I have a lot of projects I'm working on, okay? But as for my final prediction, I'm gonna say it, I think this will be a pretty good, if not top tier, all-arounder exotic. If you're having trouble staying alive, you can probably just put this thing on, not to mention the possible builds. It definitely depends on the stats of the turret as well, but for that we'll just have to wait for Witch Queen. And finally, we get to what I think will be the worst one, the Hunter Glaive, surprise surprise, Edge of Concurrence. It just chains lightning. That's it. Okay, I guess the chain lightning is tracking, but let me just say what we're all thinking. Trinity Ghoul will probably be better. My prediction is that the chain lightning from the glaive will do much more damage than Trinity since it's a special weapon. However, I think the trade-off will be that it will not be able to kill nearly as many enemies as Trinity, or if it can, then it will be at a much slower rate of fire. Let's not forget that Trinity does the same thing, but with infinite ammo since it's a primary weapon. I do think that it's still possible for this weapon to have a place in the meta though, albeit a small one. Currently, Trinity Ghoul can't really be used for content where you're under light since it doesn't do enough damage to one-shot red bars with the chain lightning, although that might change with the primary exotic damage buff, but let's not worry about that. However, I think it's possible that the chain lightning from this weapon might do enough damage to one-shot weak enemies in contest mode and other difficult activities, which could give it a very specific but very useful ad-clear roles in those activities. As for PvP, this could be great if it works anything like Doom Marchers. Oh god, I don't even want to think about that. Other than that, I can't see many scenarios where it would be more useful than other exotics unless the base glaive weapon is much more powerful than I'm currently predicting. Alright, finally we can get to the more classic weapons. Not that anything about these new exotics is old by any means. Nothing exemplifies this more than the exotic grenade launcher, Parasite. Guys, I actually laughed out loud when I saw this thing. I cannot believe that we are going to be launching exploding hive worms at Savathûn. Like, what were they smoking when they came up with this? In any case, it's hilarious, and I absolutely love it. The only problem is that grenade launchers are far from meta in the game currently. The only grenade launcher that I know of that's decent is Anarchy, and although it's reigned for literally years over the game, it's far from the beast it was in the past after it got nerfed. Does that mean that Parasite is doomed to be a painfully average weapon then? Well, not necessarily. We've been told that its perk will have something to do with increasing damage. Now, increasing damage is a great start to making something a good DPS weapon. What really matters is how large the damage increase will be and what will cause it to trigger. It's a bit difficult to predict how this weapon will work since it's so unique, but I do have a few theories. The most boring would be an improved version of Full Core, where the further the worm flies, the more damage it does. It could also involve kills, charging up the next or final shot, and a Hawkmoon-esque perk that makes the final shot do massively improved damage. It could be more boring, such as direct hits increasing the damage of the rest of the shots in the magazine too. Even though that's more boring, it would definitely be pretty effective. One of the more out there theories I have is maybe the direct impacts will cause the worm to burrow into the target and make future shots deal more damage. If that's the case, then it could actually be a great DPS weapon with the perk functioning like a better version of spike grenades. In any case, the aesthetic of this weapon, the uniqueness of the design, and the satisfaction of launching a screaming, exploding worm into groups of hive will surely make it fun to use, whether it's good or not. The new primary weapon is called Osteo Striga. If you've bought the deluxe version of Witch Queen, then you'll get this one immediately along with its catalyst and an ornament. Thanks to the Vidoc, we know much more about this weapon than any of the others since its crafting screen was shown. We can see here some familiar perks such as polygonal rifling and steady rounds with one new perk. This perk will likely have something to do with the corruptive properties of the weapon. We know that the weapon will fire tracking rounds that make enemies explode in a poison burst, which makes it sound similar to Ager's Scepter for me actually. I am kind of afraid that the weapon will be comparatively weak to other SMGs to compensate for its tracking, but its impact is 25, which makes it on par with the other 600 RPM SMGs. One thing that makes this weapon pretty interesting is that it's the first exotic 600 RPM SMG. Looking at its stats, the 78 range and 75 stability put it far above others in its class. Because of that, I predict that it'll feel more like an auto rifle than an SMG, honestly. Despite the fact that autos are bad, it still looks like it could be a great ad clear exotic that's easy to use because of the tracking and explosions. There could even be some build potential since it can likely be combined with necrotic grips to improve its performance. I think it'll fill a similar role to Ager's Scepter, but it'll be much more commonly used since you'll have infinite ammo and be easy to hit targets with. Oh my god, I just realized. An exotic primary with tracking rounds in the Crucible, oh no. Oh no, Bungie, what have you done? What have you done?! Okay, lastly we have the Grand Overture. It's a machine gun described as a slug launcher that charges full auto missiles. So what does that mean? The first time I saw this thing, I immediately thought that this is going to be the best damage exotic of all the exotics shown. In the Vidoc, it's revealed that you can fire a barrage of up to 20 tracking missiles. This is clearly modeled after the Cabal Colossus. Guys, not only is this cool as f***, but I think this has potential to be one of the best burst damage exotics in the game. Since the description says the weapon charges to fire, I think that it'll be able to be charged for different periods of time to fire larger and larger numbers of missiles at once. In that way, I think it'll be a kind of combination between a fusion rifle and a rocket launcher. So high burst damage, right? If you don't know what that means, it means a lot of damage in a short period of time, as opposed to sustained damage, which is more damage over a longer period of time. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed the weapon has the same sound effect as the Wardcliff coil, right? That's another weapon with fairly high burst damage, but it's more well known for breaking the game with various glitches. If any of the physics from Wardcliff were reused, then this thing has the potential to break the game, from doing things to more damage than intended, to damaging enemies through invincible shields. It's harder to predict stuff like that, but I'll definitely be testing it when Witch Queen comes out. To sum it up, when you get this weapon, I'm fairly confident that you're going to want to try it out on raid bosses to see just how quickly your team can melt them. Alright, that's finally everything, I think. I was planning on talking about Void 3.0 in depth actually, but this script is already over 5,000 words, and I need to finish this video before Witch Queen comes out, so let's just do a quick speedrun of the most important parts of Void 3.0. Ready? Go! Hunter Super is new. Burst of 3 tracking tethers, decrease casting time, and makes enemies explode. Might be better for damage, but don't get your hopes up. Deadfall creates void anchors that give enemies the big suck. Kinda nice, but I think tethers should last longer to make it more useful. Smoke Bomb weakens enemies. Holy shit, they did it! They made the Hunter melee ability more useful. It blinds and removed HUD in PvP, good god. Aspects give Shadow Dive but void that weakens and Invisis. Sounds fun and actually pretty good. Dash Invis can be used on any void subclass now. Finally, I've wanted this for years. Defeat a buff target to get Invis and weaken on the next melee hit. Sounds like the weakest of the three that has some damage build potential. Warlock Super sound relatively the same, but tuned to be better. Nova Warp gives more efficient teleport and improves ranges of damage. Nova with Cataclysm gives better tracking to make it better in PvP. Why? Just why? I already die every time I even look at a Nova Bomb. Aspects make Warlocks able to hold to overcharge all grenades except Suppressor. Pretty cool, especially when mixed with the grenade build. Devour can be procced in any void subclass. Jesus Christ, void buddies. Yep, you heard that right. They attack and weaken enemies you target, so they just gave Warlocks a single target tether. Make Hunters even more obsolete, why don't you? Titan Bubble cast time is greatly shortened, and it's in the fastest cooldown tier. That's awesome, I love it. Apparently the damage buff is being reduced. I hate it. That was one of the only reasons to use Titan over Warlock in PvE. Definitely makes Bubble better in PvP though. Sentinel Shield lets you throw more shields and gives you an overshield on shield bash. Aspects makes enemies explode on death after being hit by avoid ability. Barricade gives overshield for you and your allies. You know Titans need a way to get some health back in PvE. More grenade energy and melee damage in Bubble and with an overshield. Insane build potential here. Excited to see what I can do with the Titan grenade build. Woo! We made it. This was originally supposed to be a quick project while I worked to finish up the Warlock build video, but well, then I started writing and the next thing you know I have this. I mainly made this because I was excited about the new stuff coming and wanted to talk about my theories, so let me know what you think. I'd love to discuss if you have any theories of your own. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. It really does help me out, and I'm planning on making a lot more content like this for Witch Queen that you won't want to miss. By the way, I am trying my best to get the Warlock Protective Light build out before Witch Queen so you can all use it for day one. Also, I do stream on Twitch. I'll be streaming all day on Witch Queen Day 1 and for the Raid Race, so follow the channel if you want to catch me live for those. Alright, I think I've gotten through my spiel, so thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you. See ya.